Hey there, lady. My name is Molly Conley, and I'm devoted to helping women reinvent their love lives, whether that's after divorce, dating on and off the apps, or in their committed relationship. Why? Because I've been there. I'm a former college athlete who filed for divorce 3 years into marriage, swam in the online dating pool into my late 30s, and now I am married to the man of my spreadsheet dreams who I met 4 months before the world shut down. As a dating and relationship coach, I help my clients shift the focus from being obsessed with finding Mr. Right to shifting to herself as Miss Right Now. We build a foundation filled with clarity, connection, and confidence, knowing she is worth waiting for. Each week on the podcast, I'll bring you love life insights and savvy guests, where you will receive the courage to release programmed limiting beliefs. Discover patterns and behaviors restricting you from finding and attracting quality men, and ways to choose yourself first so you can build a foundation for a healthy relationship with yourself and a partner. Hey, lady. Welcome back to Reinventing the Arena podcast. I am glad that you are here. I literally been wanting to discuss something that kind of came up recently when I was ironically trying different ways to expand my business. I was taking a course from someone and they were talking about how often you actually share your story with your audience. And I'm like, oh, I shared it once. And the person was like, no, you need to share it more often. And that was when I was really starting to think back to some of the stories that I haven't shared that was part of my journey to getting me to where I am today, and how really important some of those were. And one of those has to deal with a photograph. And it really made me think back, not only to the story, but more of a like, what if? And that is what I'm going to take you through today. What if I didn't do X, Y, and Z? And maybe you are in the same boat where you're going through a journey right now in your love life. You know, either that's you're frustrated with dating, there's no quality matches online, you think all men want one thing, or maybe you're just like, you're just divorced recently, or maybe in recent can also be like in the last 5 years, and it's just a whole different world that you're living in that you're not used to, and you don't know what is next on your journey here, how to build that connection to find love again. Or like I said, maybe you haven't even found love yet, that you're just wondering if it's there for you. This story might hit hard. I'm not gonna lie to you. I am going to try not to cry because that's how big and personal this episode is going to be. And for those of you who know me really well or have been listening to the podcast for a long time, I don't cry. So if I do, I'm going to be going off script. Obviously, you can tell that maybe right now. Um, it will be a little interesting. So when I was discussing, my storytelling, or like the things that I want to share with not only you, but even with my clients, just so that people have a deeper understanding and connection point, I didn't realize that that was going to be important as much as a few people have been telling me. And so, yes, I've been bringing on guest after guest, sharing wonderful stories about how they've helped clients and how they got to where they are. And there are moments where I share a little bit of my story and it connects me with the person that I'm talking to even more, but it obviously does connect you to the two of us as well. But with this one story, I was having to flash back and saying, what if I would have stayed married? What would have my life looked like? And so I took myself all the way back to 2008, 2009, and 2010. And let me tell you, my body, the energy drained out of me. I could feel instant sadness. I could feel depression setting in. I really I didn't even have anxiety back then because I felt stuck with nowhere to go. I had so many friends and family members loving my ex-husband. And just to be honest and fair here, he's a good person deep down. He's not good for me. I knew he was cheating on me way longer than I was willing to admit. And I never name him because I want him to have that privacy in a sense, as well as that is not really his part of my story anymore. It's part of how I got to where I am now. But I'm not wanting to live in the same emotional and mental state as I was in 2008 and 2000, all the way to 2011, to be honest. So going back then, if I would have stayed married, I know that I would have gone deeper into depression. I know I would have gained more weight because for me, I eat my feelings. I didn't feel like I had anyone other than a few friends who could see that I was going down a path where I wasn't happy or that I maybe had been there before. I struggled with issues of perfectionism, with trying to be the perfect wife, but at the same time, I felt more like a roommate. I tried people pleasing in a sense of what my family might have wanted for me to do. And eventually, I felt like it was a good time to go. I had tried everything. You can hear more about that in episode 43. Maybe you know someone who is feeling this way. Maybe it's actually you and you feel so stuck and there's no one that really knows how you feel because when you've tried to talk about it with them, they're either like, "Oh, I've been there," and they go down a path of, that it's not necessarily a big deal. It's just how relationships go. Or people say, "Well, this is just how marriage is. You're not happy. You're not always happy. You have to settle. You have to do this." I'm here to tell you that is a bunch of fucking bullshit. You don't have to settle for anyone or anything ever. You get to make the choice and to say, "I want to try this out." And later on, you get to decide if it's going to work for you or not long term. I would never say that my first marriage, was a mistake. It was a huge learning lesson in so many different ways of my life. And the people that say those things that maybe it's, you're just going to have to settle down or you're not always going to be happy in your marriage or maybe you're being too picky or whatever else people tell you, once again, is how they're seeing it through their own eyes and their own sense of reality. And I remember discussing this with a previous client of mine and actually talking about this with my friends. Some people are just so comfortable with being unhappy. They're completely satisfied that they are addicted to being unhappy. They are addicted to complaining. They are addicted to pushing blame onto other people. They are addicted to seeing the worst in every single day. Those are not the type of people that are going to support you in making a choice that is for your better self, your future self, for the dreams that you have for yourself. They like to bathe themselves in misery day after day, thinking no one or nothing else can make it better. And you honestly can't tell them otherwise. And to be honest, sometimes I think of these people like I have to reframe them, especially if I am really close to these people or have in the past actually, that they have like almost like they're a toddler. They have that little pouty face on and like they kind of are throwing a tantrum because they're sitting in the corner, upset because they're in timeout or whatever, but they're like being so bullheaded that they can't admit that maybe, just maybe, they're wrong. That there could be something more out there for them if they're willing to do that work. So, going back to what I was mentioning earlier in this story, was that there was a photo. After my divorce, I honestly had um I honestly had a few months where my family was not very happy with me. That's what it felt like to me. My parents were pretty upset because they didn't see what I had experienced. And, at the time, I wanted them to see, but no one can fully understand. No one can actually be in your shoes because your life is so unique to who you are. It's your DNA, it's your footprint. Like everything is so unique to you. I was hanging out with my mom one day and I saw the photo of my grandparents. And back when I was living alone, or at that time I was living alone, and I was looking at that photo, and I remember how my grandparents looked. They were at my Uncle Bill's wedding back in the 1990s. Um, and it was one of those things where, like, this wedding was super fun. Or maybe it was my Uncle Mike's. I can't remember. Actually, now that I think about it, I might have been 12, 13, something like that. And we were able to do like video recordings and like leaving a video message on those really fun camcorders of being like, I remember when this and this and this, and I love you guys. You're so great, blah, blah, blah. Those sort of cameo moments, right? But there's also a photographer there that would capture in the moment photos like most photographers do. And then they set up like a studio setting for anyone to come get photos. And my grandparents decided that they wanted some photos together, that they don't have any. And so this photo, oh my gosh, I might have to put up on my social media, on my Instagram account. But the two of them are looking at each other and they are so in love and they're holding hands. And both my grandparents have passed away, by the way. They passed away like right before I got married. One of them did, my grandmother, and then my grandfather passed away in 2010. So when I look at this photo, I'm actually like looking at it right now. You can feel the love that they have for each other. You can see it in their faces. You can see it in their eyes. And I'm really trying not to cry. But the reason why this photo was so important was because when I was married and I looked at that photo, because I had that photo at our wedding. We had taken grandparents' photos. We had taken my parents' photos of them getting married. We just decided to have those up. Not just no one at the time other than my grandmother had passed away, but because we wanted to just, honor those family members of ours. And I didn't think anything of it then. But when I was packing up my stuff after my divorce and I looked at that picture, I realized my ex-husband never looked at me like that. Ever. I never could look into his eyes and feel like he loved me. I lost it. Like I really, really started crying. And so like when I was hanging out with my mom and I was telling her this same story, I just burst into tears. And my mom knew, she knew how difficult it was because she was like, you never cry. Like even as a child, I never really cried, which is probably really strange. But like, that's beyond the point. But I bawled my eyes out because that was the love that I was looking for. And it was right here in a photo, in a moment that was captured years ago, 20 years prior, of what I wanted in a relationship. And even though I don't know how my grandparents' relationship really, really was, that one moment just captured what I wanted and felt so deeply. And I'm like, if they can have it, if my grandparents who met each other in high school and were high school sweethearts and fell in love and had 5 kids and, both of them were entrepreneurs, if they could make it work, they had love like this, I know that I can find a love like this. So deep down, I knew that was one thing that I had to physically experience and see. That was not a quality, it was not a characteristic, it was a moment that I wanted to experience with someone who I already knew was authentic, was honest, was a gentleman. So for me, it made it so much easier dating because I had this example that was my family members. Just that one moment I was able to say, this is what I want to feel, this is what I want to see. So like I said, back then I always questioned my ex-husband because I never had him like look at me like that. I even went through I still have this. The only reason why I still have my wedding album is because there's people that have passed away that these photos I cannot get back because it's a hard copy. These are not digital. When I look back at the photos and he was looking at me, it was never a feeling of love. It was just looking at me as a person, not as like the love of your life. And I never experienced that at all from him. And it, for some reason, just went over my head. But my current husband, my husband now, Brad, I never have to question. He is, well, first of all, he's very analytical and he's always in his head. But he has looked at me like that, not every day, not every week, but I can catch him and he's looking at me in a way that I know he doesn't even have to say, I love you. And that was the type of love I was looking for. While I figured this out, how did I figure it out? Other than realizing there was that gap of what I wanted to see in this relationship, I knew that in order for me to be able to look back at someone else with the same sort of love and compassion, that I was going to have to figure out what I needed to work on in order to have the capacity to do that. And a lot of the times we do skip over the inner work because we don't think it's us. We think it's them. We think it's the other person. And, I had to question a few times deep down, what is it that I'm really looking for? What am I questioning about my love for myself? Why am I questioning like my worth? Why am I questioning if I trust myself? Because I didn't feel lovable. I didn't see that in my ex-husband's eyes. I didn't feel that whatsoever. And I had to find ways to bring that to myself. And so this is why when I talk about how important it is to do the inner work to find the person you want to be with, it's because I had to walk my own talk. I 100% know, I believe that no matter what, if you do not do the inner work, you will never be able to feel the deep, deep love that comes on top of loving yourself. Because when you love yourself, everyone else's love is so much more satisfying. It is still an empty feeling when you have someone that says that they love you, because sometimes you don't even believe it. So this is why I say that working on self-worth, self-trust, self-love, and self-care as the deeper work in order to find the unwavering belief that love is out there for you is important. This is why I had to share that episode today. And I am surprised I was able to do it without crying. Actually, I cut out pause. You didn't see it. You didn't hear it. But it was there. I had to compose myself because I didn't want to start crying on this episode to the point where you can't understand me. But know that there is a love out there for you, but know that there's already a love inside of you, and you are so worthy of bringing that out. If that is something that you need to do and need to work on, continue to listen to the podcast, go back through some past episodes. I know that there's ones out there, specifically when I was working on that group coaching, sharing about that. I'm also going to be doing some really deep inner work, group programs, as well as workshops coming up in 2024. So, if that is something that you're going to be interested in, I highly recommend getting on my email list because the ladies that are on there are going to be the first ones to really hear about it. That I'm going to be sharing these later on in November. So, with that being said, you can get on my email list by going to the show notes right now, or you can pull up your phone and, type in reinventingthearena.com, scroll down to the bottom of my website and sign up for Lady Love Lessons. You can also take the quiz, What's Sabotaging Your Love Life? Oh, and I will say that I have possibly, I don't know when it's going to come out because I don't know when I'm going to finish it, but I have another quiz that's going to be coming out here, hopefully in like the next 2 weeks. So either way, I recommend getting on the email list because if these are the things that you want to work on and you want to work on them with me, get on the email list so you can be the first one to know about them and see if it's a right fit for you. All right, lady. I hope this podcast was helpful for you, this episode today. And I will be back again on Thursday for another episode. And yeah, I'll talk to you soon. Okay, so it's no surprise, but I love sharing personal stories with you ladies, and this one includes a product. In 2021, I tried Dry January for the first time, and it was tough. Fast forward to 2022, and I thought it was going to be easier, but it wasn't. I couldn't find anything, literally anything that tasted good to replace my favorite cocktail or glass of wine. So for months, I was still looking because I wanted something to replace the beverage whenever I wanted. Then Moment appeared, and I fell in love. It's a botanical water, either still or sparkling, with no artificial flavors, no caffeine, and no added sugar. Instead, they have refreshing fruit flavors, healthy botanicals, and adaptogens. Some of my favorite flavors are blueberry ginger, spiced mango, and blood orange. I always keep them on hand for those nights when I like to sip a cocktail or have a glass of wine, but rather not deal with any of those side effects of alcohol. You know what I'm talking about: the headache, the dehydration, the horrible night's sleep, the hangover, and whatever else may come your way. If you're looking for an alcoholic replacement for Dry January or just because, check out Moment. Here's some fun facts: 1% of all their sales goes to mental health nonprofits, and they were on Shark Tank. If you want to give them a try, use my promo code Reinventing the Arena at checkout for 15% off. The link is in the show notes.